Hello everyone, and welcome to some more horrific news. Alright, this popped up and I thought we'd take a wee look at it. CEO of stylish Swedish D&D revival Free League. We won't stop making new games. Tomas Härenstam, CEO of Free League Publishing, gives a retrospective on the tabletop RPG makers' games, goals, and lessons going into 2025. Free League is one of tabletop role-playing's most consistent and busy publishers. Throughout 2024, it dropped several expansions for its most popular existing titles, plus all new tabletop RPGs like The Electric State, yes, the one that's getting a blockbuster movie, with further expansions to a spin-off skirmish board game released in 2024. The publisher also looks to be branching out into the tabletop space. 2024 was a busy season, but 2025 looks to be even busier, if Free League's numerous announcements and Kickstarter campaigns are anything to go by. Back when the weather was a bit warmer, we caught up with Free League CEO Tomas Härenstam to discuss what the tabletop RPG publisher is up to this year and the next. Alright, this looks like an interview, so I've only done one or two interviews on this, so I'll just read it out as we go along. Blade Runner Replicant Rebellion is in production, and February 2025 is the estimated launch date. It takes a very different approach from the core books. Where can you see the Blade Runner RPG going after this release? What we wanted to do with Replicant Rebellion is to give another way to play in the Blade Runner universe. We intentionally designed the core game to focus on playing Blade Runners in investigation-style scenarios, because we felt that was the perfect starting point and an intuitive way to play based on the films. But even when creating the core game, we felt there was also room to play other types of characters. Rather than making a more broad core game that could perhaps be too unfocused, we decided to create this expansion. In Replicant Rebellion, you play operations instead of investigation. The idea is that operations can be shorter and a bit more straightforward than case files that are played in the core game. They can be a lot of fun. Operations are easier to prepare. One of the things we hope going forward is that the case file approach to playing Blade Runner will continue. We'll publish more official case files, but also, parallel to that, we'll have the Rebellion track, where you can play Rebels underground. Perhaps it'll be easier for the community to create materials for themselves as well, because operations are less work intensive to create. In previous interviews, you mentioned that the Blade Runner RPG is one of your favourite things you worked on. Is this still the case? Personally, on the game design side, I've worked mostly with Blade Runner, Dragonbane, and to some extent Alien. It's hard to choose, but those are still very much my favourite titles. I've enjoyed the Blade Runner films a lot throughout the years, so it does have a special place for me in the portfolio. You've previously talked about communities building on these games after they've released, and it's been over a year since Free League announced free tabletop licenses for Year Zero and Dragonbane. What are the major successes of launching those licenses? Generally, they've been working well. There's been lots of activity with the Dragonbane license, both in English and in Swedish, since that game has a long Swedish legacy and tradition. I think it's been a lot of fun for Swedish creators and internationally to publish things using that license. There's been a bunch of Kickstarters for different projects using both licenses, which is great because it means there are more expansions for the games than we can actually create ourselves. Overall, it's been extremely positive to see all of that happen. The only issue we've been having, which kind of comes with the territory, is that there are some limitations for what we can and can't do with the license. And there are always going to be borderline cases. We get questions asking, can we do this or can we do that within scope of the license? We've had to answer some questions on that, but overall it's been fairly light, a 99% positive experience. Most of this year's Free League titles are expansions for existing games. Is it challenging to expand so many games at once? It is. Quite a few of us in the core team enjoy trying new stuff and designing new games, so for quite some time, the natural approach when we finished one game was to do another. And in the end, that meant the portfolio grew. We have something like 12 or 13 games, and we still really enjoy them all. We felt like maybe we'd have to take it easy with new titles and support the game lines that we already have. We really enjoy them, and there's a community for them, and we need to take responsibility for nurturing those games that are already there. We won't stop making new games, but the focus has switched a bit to supporting games rather than publishing completely new games all the time. For the last year, we have done a decent job of that. We had quite a lot of expansions and modules coming out for almost all of the game lines that we have. We also have, in that general field, a new edition of Coriolis coming up. That's another way of supporting a game line. We launch an entirely new edition of the game, which is fairly natural for these games that have been out for a number of years. Coriolis came out in 2017, so by the time the new edition comes out, it'll be 8 years old. We have learned so much in the intervening time, and the community has grown, so it's going to make sense for some games going forward to have a new edition that incorporates everything we've learned. Coriolis is a flagship game for Free League, and the publisher has a lot of history with the game, so it must feel quite special to return to it in Coriolis, the Great Dark. Yeah, it definitely is. The new edition we did has some pretty drastic changes. It's still the same world and core game mechanic, but it's a fairly large shift. There have been mostly positive but mixed reactions from the community, because we're taking a big step and moving from the Third Horizon, where the original game was set. Some people have been playing the Third Horizon for years, and the Great Dark moves into a different part of space. It also changes the tone of the game to be even more focused on exploration, and that does change things quite a bit. That will raise questions. I think the community has come around to what the new game is, but when we first announced it, we got quite a few raised eyebrows. Hopefully when it comes out, the community will really enjoy it. Another game that's quite special for Free League is Mutant Year Zero, which has taken quite a different direction with the release of Mutant Year Zero, Zone Wars in 2023. Going forward, do you think you'll further expand on the product line for Zone Wars? I think so. There's nothing yet that we have decided 100%, but we're definitely looking into it. Of course, there's already one expansion. That means you can play with 4 players at the same time, but what we're discussing is a smaller expansion that maybe adds one more faction, or even smaller ones with a monster figure and a few scenarios attached to it. You've also got a limited history of expanding other RPGs into tabletop games. Can you see more of those in your future? Possibly. We do have some ideas in that respect. Tales from the Loop was an interesting experiment. It's a nice fun game, though in hindsight, maybe a bit more complex than it needed to be. We're looking into doing more board games, but we're also talking to other companies because we're also open to partnerships with other board game publishers who want to create board games based on our brands. We're also looking into perhaps doing more skirmish games like Zone Wars. However, we've realised that our main strength, what we're best at designing, is RPGs. Dipping our toes into other areas is a lot of fun, but we'll do it more carefully and slowly. We won't change and become a board game design company. We'll remain focused on RPGs and make non-RPG games that are clearly tied into games we already have. And that is it. There you go. As you are well aware, I'm a fan of Free League as a publisher. I'm going to feature quite a few other games on the channel. We're playing Workbook this week actually, and we're back to Alien the week after, so it's all to play for, plenty going on. And we're also looking at maybe Mutant Year Zero at a later point. I love the way they keep comparing it to D&D. I explain my history with RPGs. D&D wasn't really on the radar, and it's still not. I more play it because friends do, now and again, jump on the channel, but I really have no affinity for that game. It's just funny that I've said this, there's role players that play D&D and there's D&D players. D&D players are just locked in that world, and anything outside it is anathema to them, and I'm glad I'm not like that. I suppose it's the same as being a tabletop wargamer and only playing 40k and nothing else. It's sort of limited. One thing Free League has done, and I'm glad I came across them, was they've just got a massive range of games, and they have a way of storytelling and making it immersive and not being overcomplicated with the rules. So a lot to enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed the content on Spicy Alien. That's been a lot of fun, and we're coming back to that. And the Morkborg stuff's great too. Definitely going to do more of that. So they really have a good horror focus as well, similar to Call of Cthulhu, the way that's purely horror focused. I don't know, when you play a whole range of games, like D&D fades more into the background, I have to be honest, because there's just so much out there and so many things you can delve into. But anyway, there you go. Let me know what you think. And until next time, keep updated with the channel, do the type of thing, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.